A 21-year-old soldier was punished and ordered to clean out a basement that had been abandoned for decades on a military base. What he found there changed not only his life, but the lives of everyone around him. A miracle of the Virgin Mary that no one expected. But before we continue, leave a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is there right now. I'd love to see how far the miracles of the Virgin Mary are reaching. Marcus Reed woke up at 5 in the morning every day. 21 years old, in his second month as a recruit on a military base in South Carolina, the kind of man who didn't believe in anything he couldn't see, touch, or explain. He grew up with only his mother, no father, no religion, no church, a simple life, practical, real. The base where he served had been built in the 1940s. Some buildings had been renovated, others simply forgotten. Building C was one of those, 3 floors of gray concrete that nobody used. The basement was off limits. Not officially, just no one went down there. Tuesday, 7 in the morning, Marcus arrived 3 minutes late for formation. Sergeant Cooper didn't need to yell. The look was enough. Reed, Building C, basement, full cleanup, today? The other recruits lowered their eyes. Everyone knew what that basement was. Marcus grabbed gloves, a broom, and trash bags, walked to the building alone. A rusted security fence surrounded the perimeter. The grass around it hadn't been cut in months. The main door opened with difficulty. Hinges protested. The hallway smelled of something old, forgotten. Mold mixed with damp concrete and decades of neglect, peeling walls, exposed wiring in some places, broken windows letting in dim light that cast strange shadows. The staircase to the basement was at the back, wood creaking with every step. Marcus held onto the rusted handrail, testing it, before putting his weight on it. When he reached the bottom and looked around, he understood why no one wanted to be there. The basement was huge, at least 20 meters long, with concrete walls sweating moisture. The low ceiling had dark stains from leaks. Rusty pipes ran overhead, dripping water in some spots. Boxes piled without order, broken furniture, cobwebs hanging from the ceiling, some so thick they looked like curtains. A layer of dust so dense it showed that no one had stepped there in years, maybe decades. The air was heavy, hard to breathe. Every movement stirred up clouds of dust that danced in the dim light. Marcus started in the corner nearest the stairs, worked for hours, sweat on his back despite the damp cold of the basement. Dirty hands, throat scratching from the dust. 3 hours later, he reached the far end, the darkest corner. There was an old shelf, rotten wood nearly collapsing, moldy boxes on top, rust everywhere. And there, amid the decay, Marcus saw something that made him freeze completely. A statue of the Virgin Mary, small, about 12 inches tall, made of what looked like plaster or ceramic. Blue mantle, hands joined in a prayer. A serene face, eyes cast downward. But something was completely wrong with that scene. Everything around it was destroyed. Rust, mold, decades of dust. The shelf itself was rotting. Marcus blinked, thinking he was seeing it wrong in the faint light. He leaned closer. He wasn't seeing it wrong. The statue was immaculate, as if someone had just placed it there that very morning. No dust, no stains. The colors were vibrant, the blue of the mantle deep and bright, the white of the tunic pure and unyellowed. Even the facial details were perfect, sharp. Marcus looked around. Everything, absolutely everything, was in decay, except that statue. He picked it up carefully, turned it over, looking for an explanation. Nothing. Just smooth material, unmarked. How was that possible? Decades in a damp, abandoned basement. It should have been stained, cracked, covered in grime like everything else. But it was flawless. Marcus wasn't religious, but he wasn't foolish either. He knew when something didn't make sense. For some reason, even he couldn't explain, he tucked the statue inside his jacket and finished cleaning. Back at the quarters, he placed it in the locker, took a shower, went to dinner, came back. Before sleeping, he opened the locker and looked at it again. Nothing special about the statue itself, just an ordinary image of the Virgin Mary, but that impossible cleanliness. He closed the locker and turned off the light. He had no idea that 3 days later, his life would completely fall apart. Thursday, 2 in the afternoon. Marcus was in the training field when an aide came running. "Reed, Sergeant Cooper wants you in the office. Now!" Marcus ran there. Cooper was standing, face serious. "Reed, the hospital called. Your mother was admitted to the ER. Severe kidney crisis. You need to call them immediately." Marcus grabbed the phone Cooper offered, his hands trembling as he dialed. "Your mother had a kidney failure episode 2 hours ago," said the professional voice on the other end. "She's stable for now, but the situation is serious. She urgently needs a transplant." "How long does she have?" A long pause. "Without a transplant?" "Hard to say." "Days, maybe 2 weeks if she responds well to treatment." Marcus hung up. His legs nearly gave out. "Sergeant, I need to see her." Cooper sighed. "Reed, you can have weekend leave. You leave tomorrow morning early, return Sunday night. That's the most I can authorize right now." "But, sir—" "Tomorrow morning, Reed. Go pack your things." Have you ever received news that made the world stop? That second when everything around keeps moving, but you're frozen? Marcus returned to the barracks. Everyone else was still training. He was alone. He sat on the edge of his bed. His mother had struggled with kidney problems for years. She'd been on the transplant list for over 2 years, but had been stable with treatment, until now. He opened the locker, took out the statue of the Virgin Mary. He didn't know how to pray. He had never prayed in his life. But he held the statue in both hands and whispered, "If you exist, please. She spent her whole life taking care of me. She's all I have." Silence. Only the distant sound of voices outside. Marcus placed the statue of the Virgin Mary back in the locker. Friday, 5 in the morning. Marcus was on the first bus out of the base. 3 hours to the hospital. His mother was in a room on the 3rd floor. Room 313. Marcus stopped at the door, took a deep breath, knocked softly, and entered. Linda Reed lay in bed, head slightly elevated, pale, much paler than Marcus remembered. She opened her eyes when he walked in. Marcus. Her voice was weak, hoarse. "Mom?" He pulled up a chair and took her hand. "You didn't have to come. You're training. Stop it." They were silent for a moment. Marcus looked at the machines around her. Numbers he didn't understand, but that looked important. "Did the doctors say anything?" She sighed. "That I've been on the list for so long?" She closed her eyes. 2 years and 4 months, Marcus, waiting for a compatible donor, and nothing. It'll happen. "I don't know, son." Her voice was barely a whisper now. "I don't know if I have time." Marcus returned to the base Sunday night with a tight chest. Monday morning, formation at 6. Sergeant Cooper shouting orders, recruits running to position, everything going back to normal. Except nothing was normal. Tuesday afternoon he called the hospital during his lunch break. "Your mother had a quiet night," said the nurse. "Her vital signs have improved a little. She's responding better to treatment than we expected." Marcus frowned. "Improved?" "Yes, not much, but there's been progress. The doctor will see her this afternoon." Wednesday, he called again. Same news. Stable, slowly improving. Thursday night, he managed to speak with the doctor. "Honestly, Mr. Reed, I can't fully explain it. We expected her condition to worsen, but her kidney function is improving, slowly but consistently. It's not the typical pattern." Marcus hung up and stared at the phone. That night, before bed, he took the statue of the Virgin Mary from the locker. He just held it for a few minutes and whispered a thank you. Jackson, who slept in the bed next to his, got up to go to the bathroom and saw him. "You pray now?" Marcus quickly put the statue away. "Sometimes." Jackson just nodded, smiling, and left. A week after finding the statue, Marcus began to feel that maybe things were getting better. It was in the second week that everything fell apart. Thursday, noon. Marcus was having lunch in the mess hall when an aide came in. "Reed, Sergeant Cooper needs you. Urgent." Marcus dropped his tray and ran. Cooper was on the phone when he entered. He hung up and looked at Marcus. "The hospital called. Your mother had a severe episode this morning. You need to call them now." Marcus dialed with fingers barely able to hold the phone. "Mr. Reed, your mother's condition suddenly worsened 3 hours ago. The kidney function that had been improving just stopped responding. Without an immediate transplant, she has days, maybe less." The phone almost slipped from Marcus's hand. "Days? We're doing everything we can. But without a donor?" Marcus hung up. He stood there, unable to move. "Reed," Cooper's voice was softer than usual. "Go to the barracks. Rest. I'll see what I can do about another leave." Marcus walked to the barracks like a zombie, entered. It was empty. Everyone still at the mess hall or in training. He fell to his knees beside the bed. For the first time since childhood, he cried. He cried for his mother, for the helplessness of being far away, for not being able to do anything while she faced this alone. He opened the locker with trembling hands, took out the statue of the Virgin Mary, pressed it against his chest. "Please," he whispered through sobs, "please don't let this happen. She's all I have. Please." Dear. And then something impossible happened. The barracks were completely sealed, windows locked, doors closed. It was winter. There wasn't a single flower anywhere on the base, just gray concrete. But the air around Marcus filled with fragrance. Roses. It wasn't subtle. It was intense. Sweet. Unmistakable. As if someone had just brought dozens of fresh roses and placed them beside him. Marcus opened his eyes, looked around desperately. Nothing, no one, just him, alone, in the empty barracks. But the scent was there, real, tangible, filling every inch of the space like an invisible embrace. And with the perfume came something he couldn't name. It was peace, deep, unexplainable, a sensation that he was not alone. The fragrance lasted perhaps 2 minutes. Then it vanished as suddenly as it had appeared. Marcus remained kneeling there, holding the statue, tears still wetting his face. But something fundamental had changed. He could breathe again. He heard voices approaching. The squad returning. He quickly wiped his face with his sleeve and tucked the statue of the Virgin Mary away. Jackson was the first to enter. He stopped when he saw Marcus. "Reed? Man, are you okay?" The others came in behind him, Davis, Johnson, Thompson, Stevens. They all saw Marcus's expression and froze. "We heard," Johnson said quietly. "About your mom. Sergeant told us." Marcus just nodded. He still couldn't speak. "If you need anything," Stevens began, but left the sentence unfinished. What could anyone offer in a moment like that? That night, Marcus didn't sleep. He lay staring at the ceiling. The scent was still vivid in his memory. Impossible. Unexplainable. But real. At 5 in the morning, his phone rang. It was the hospital. Marcus answered with his heart in his throat, bracing for the worst. "Mr. Reed?" The voice on the other end sounded different. Excited. "We have important news. We found a compatible donor for your mother." Marcus froze completely. He couldn't process the words. "Mr. Reed, are you hearing me? You found what?" "A donor, compatible with your mother. It came through early this morning, a perfect match. We're preparing for surgery this afternoon at 3 o'clock. But she's been on the list for more than 2 years. "I know." Marcus hung up and sat on the bed, completely in shock. Jackson stirred from the movement. Was that the hospital? "They found a donor." Marcus's voice was barely audible. "For my mom, today." Jackson sat up in bed. "What?" After 2 years on the list, it happened. The noise woke the others. Davis lifted his head. "What's going on?" Reed's mom, Jackson explained. They found a donor. Silence filled the barracks. Yesterday she was critical, Thompson said slowly. And today a donor just shows up? Marcus didn't answer. He only looked at the locker where he had placed the statue. The hours until 3 in the afternoon were the longest of Marcus's life. He tried to focus on morning training, but his mind was miles away. Sergeant Cooper excused him from afternoon drills. Marcus stayed in the barracks, phone in hand, waiting. 3:15, 3:30, 4 o'clock. They had said the surgery would take between 4 and 6 hours. 6 o'clock? 6:30. Marcus paced back and forth in the barracks. The squad returned from dinner, but no one made a sound. They all just entered quietly and waited with him. At 7:45, the phone rang. Marcus answered before the second ring. "Mr. Reed, the surgery has been completed. It was a total success. The transplant is functioning perfectly. Your mother is in recovery." Marcus had to sit down. His legs simply gave out. "She's going to be okay?" "Yes. The prognosis is excellent. Of course, she'll need time for full recovery and constant follow-up, but it's better than we expected, actually." When Marcus hung up and looked around, he realized the entire barracks was silent. Everyone was watching him. "It worked," he said, his voice breaking. "The surgery worked. She's okay." For a second, no one moved. Then Johnson began to clap, slowly at first. Davis joined in, then Jackson. Within seconds, the entire barracks was applauding. Sergeant Cooper appeared at the door. "What's going on here?" "Reed's mother, sir," Jackson explained. "She got the transplant. The surgery was a success." Cooper looked at Marcus for a long moment. Then he gave a small nod and left. That night, Marcus finally slept. For the first time in 2 weeks, he slept deeply. In the following weeks, he called the hospital every day. Always good news. His mother was recovering beyond expectations. Her body had accepted the transplant without complications. The doctors were impressed with her progress. 4 weeks after the surgery, she was discharged. "It's one of the best outcomes I've ever seen," the doctor said at the final appointment. "Her recovery rate is far above average." The transplant went perfectly. Marcus finished basic training a week later. He was granted 10 days of leave before the next phase. When he arrived home, his mother was waiting for him at the door. She looked like a completely different person. Her face had color again. Her eyes sparkled. She was truly smiling for the first time in years. "My son." She hugged him tightly. Marcus held the embrace for a long time. He could feel her strength. She was really well. They spent the first 2 days just talking. She wanted to know everything about his training. He wanted to hear every detail about her recovery. On the third day, while they were having coffee in the kitchen, Marcus told her. He told her about the basement, about the statue of the Virgin Mary that couldn't be cleaned, about the prayers he didn't know how to say, about the moment she got worse and he thought he was going to lose her, and he told her about the fragrance. His mother listened in silence, tears streaming down her face. "Did you bring the statue of the Virgin Mary?" she asked when he finished. Marcus went to the bedroom and came back with it. He placed it in her hands. Linda Reed held the statue carefully, gazing at the Virgin Mary. "She was watching over us," she whispered. "The whole time. Over you, over me. She was watching. Mom, I want you to keep her. She saved your life. She should be here with you. But son, please. She belongs to you now." His mother nodded, unable to speak. She just hugged the statue to her chest. On the 4th day of his visit, Marcus woke up early and saw through the window that his mother was in the backyard garden. He went down and stepped outside. She was on her knees, planting something. "What are you doing?" "Planting roses." She looked up at him with a smile. "Yellow, red, white ones. They'll bloom in the spring." Marcus looked around and saw that the statue of the Virgin Mary was there, in the center of what would become the garden, leaning against the wooden fence. "I thought she would look beautiful here," his mother said. surrounded by flowers, a special place. Marcus knelt beside her. He took one of the seedlings and began to plant it. Mother and son worked in silence. They didn't need words. They were simply planting life around the statue that had changed everything. When they finished, they stood there for a few minutes, just looking. "Marcus," his mother said softly, "do you believe in miracles now?" Marcus looked at the statue. He thought about the abandoned basement where it all began, about the impossible cleaning that made no sense, about the fragrance of roses that filled an empty barracks, about the donor who appeared just when they needed one, after 2 years of waiting. "Yes, Mom, I believe." She smiled and went back to working in the soil. Sometimes miracles don't come with thunder and lightning. They don't come with obvious signs written in the sky. Sometimes they arrive quietly, in forgotten basements where no one has looked for decades. And sometimes that's exactly what we need. A reminder that we're not alone, that there is something greater watching over us, especially in the moments when we doubt the most. Marcus returned to the base on Sunday. When he opened the locker to store his things, he noticed the empty space where the statue of the Virgin Mary used to be. For a moment, he missed it, but then he smiled. She was exactly where she was meant to be, in a garden surrounded by roses. And look, if you made it this far, to the end of Marcus's story, do something for me. Write in the comments, "Basement," the place where it all began, where a statue that couldn't be cleaned changed everything. I want to see how many hearts this story truly touched. And every time I read "basement" in the comments, I'll know that one more person believes that miracles of the Virgin Mary still happen. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel and activate the bell. Write in the comments about a miracle you have witnessed or experienced, and share this video with someone who needs to renew their hope today. May the Virgin Mary continue to bless and protect you and your family. Amen.